The Trump administration stole $140 billion from the American people in illegal tariffs that were really taxes on our goods and cost of goods. And now, despite the Supreme Court ordering them to return the money and finding that the money grab was illegal, they're sitting on the pile, dragging their feet and telling courts it may take up to 7 years for American importers and ultimately the American consumers to get that refund. And it's not because the Treasury Department doesn't have the money. They have $800 billion, more than enough to pay the $140 billion back. They just don't want to because Donald Trump is throwing a temper tantrum about the fact that his tariffs were torn down. They cite to future tariffs that he's going to impose or has imposed that are probably as illegal as the first ones as an excuse not to repay the refund. What does that have to do with the illegality of the money that was already stolen? That's like a bank robber saying, I'm not going to give you back the money I stole from you because I'm about to steal from you again. I'm Michael Popak. You're on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF. All came to a head yesterday at the same time that the Department of Justice wrote into a federal appeals court, socializing them, preparing them that they're going to take the position it's going to take up to 7 years to refund the money. Senate Democrats, dozens of them, have joined together behind Chuck Schumer and sent a letter to Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, to demand answers. Scott Bessent said in January that there was no problem with returning the money, didn't think it was going to happen. I don't think those tariffs are going to get torn down. Wrong again, Scott. And if they are, we have the money. We'll refund it within a year or less. We're sitting on enough money. We got enough money in the Treasury. Now, he's a big cheerleader for tariffs, even though he was not pro-tariff before he became Treasury Secretary. Certainly got on that bandwagon. Here's Scott Bessent trying to defend the tariffs in a interview on Sunday morning talk shows. Let's play the clip.
Listen to earnings calls just like we do. You know what Walmart's saying, what Best Buy's saying, and what Target are saying.
But Margaret, I also know what Home Depot and Amazon are saying. I know what the South China Morning Post wrote within the past 24 hours, that 65% of the tariffs will likely be eaten by the Chinese producers.
So are there 5 or 8 areas that you have identified, as you said back in March, where American consumers will be able to have lower prices or should be warned of higher prices?
Well, a lot of it's already working its way through the system. So we've seen a substantial decrease in gasoline and energy prices. So that's down 20% year over year. We've seen the food prices go down, these notorious egg prices. Through the good work of President Trump and Secretary Rollins, egg prices have collapsed. So we're seeing more and more. And what we want to do is even that out across all sections of the economy. So inflation has been very tame. Consumer earnings were up 0.8% last month, which is a gigantic increase for 1 month. So real earnings minus low inflation is great for the American people, and that's what we're seeing.
But because when you met with the Chinese earlier this month and you went down from the 145% tariff down to about, it's like 30%. 30% is not nothing, that tax on goods coming in here.
Now you've got the new filing in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, in which they remind the court that on page 2, that the coming process will take time to refund. And they cite to a case of U.S. Shoe Corp versus United States, in which the refund took 7 years for money that was much substantially less than the amount at issue here. So sit back, everybody. We're going to pay it back 2 administrations from now. Is that okay with you? No, it's not okay with us. We had this debate. Amy Coney Barrett led it on the United States Supreme Court before she joined with the majority 6-3 to tear down the tariffs when she asked about the refund process. And here's her in oral argument. Play the clip.
And then if you win, tell me how the reimbursement process would work. Would it be a complete mess? I mean, you're saying before the government promised reimbursement, and now you're saying we know, oh, well, that's rich. But how would this work? It seems to me like it could be a mess.
So the first thing I'd say is that just underscores just how major a question this is. The very fact that you were dealing with this with quotas, there's no refund process to the tunes of billions of dollars or embargoes, but there is here. But for our case, the way it would work is, in this case, the government stipulated for the 5 plaintiffs that they would get the refunds. So for us, that's how it would work. Your question, I take it, is about everyone else. We don't have a class action or anything like that. With respect to everyone else, there's a whole specialized body of trade law, and it's in 19 U.S.C. 1514 outlines all these administrative procedures. It's a very complicated thing. There's got to be an administrative protest. There was a harbor management case earlier that this court was involved with in the United States Shoe, in which, the refund process took a long time. There were any number of claims and equitable relief.
So a mess.
So it's difficult.
Okay.
Absolutely. We don't deny that it's difficult, but I think what this court has said, in the McKesson case in 1990 is that serious economic dislocation isn't a reason to do something. Northern Pipeline, you guys stayed your decision for a while in order to let the congressional process unfold. There may be a congressional process here as well. You may be able to also be that this court could limit